Hi, everybody. This is Kiki from Garden of Words, and this is my first ever blogger podcast. Yay! So for those who don't really know me or know much about my blog, basically what I do is that I like to write short stories about my own original characters. So if you check out my blog, it's often, like I said, stories about different characters that I write. Now, I'm sure this must confuse you because I am doing a podcast, so I'm sure you're probably thinking I'm gonna explain my inner workings of how I write my stories, or I just read one of them right off the bat. But no, that's not the case for today. I'm actually going to be talking about different films and different TV shows that I have watched in the past few months, ever since I enrolled into UIC. Now, I'm sure you're wondering why, but I firmly believe that different types of media can help expand your horizons when it comes to writing. And I firmly believe that these types of media, they help me, they inspire me in and make me able to actually write. I can't tell you how much I have just been hit with writer's block, and all of a sudden I just watch a comfort show or a comfort movie, and I end up getting kind of a flash of inspiration, and that makes me write. And even before, during the quarantine period, I would often watch musicals, and I would kind of make stories based on them, using the characters, and I kind of had a little following on internet because of it. So yeah, I believe that media can inspire people, and well, if you look at my blog, I have one movie review during Horror Week and one TV show review that actually came around my birthday, and it was kind of a self-indulgent thing. But I'm really excited to talk more about the different media that has inspired me and kind of put me into a better place ever since this semester started. So yeah. Brief disclaimer, there is a big, not really a big chance, but I have watched all of these completely full. But for the TV shows, there are two shows, and I will mention them when I get to them. But there are two shows that I haven't seen the last episode of. And for one of the shows, I haven't watched the newest, well, not really new, but the second season of it. Again, I will bring it up when I get to it. But just keep that in mind if you don't want to hear about my opinion because I didn't finish the show. I'm sorry. But if my opinion stayed mostly the same throughout most of the show, I'm sure it'll also be the same once I finally watch the last episode. And another small-ish tidbit, a lot of these, if you watched most of these shows, you'd actually find out that there is an actor who's in all of them, and he's kind of why I watched most of these different media. So if you know who it is, yeah, if you know, you know. But if you don't know who it is, don't worry. I'll tell you at the end where it gets to the last two movies that I will be reviewing on this podcast episode. So yeah, I hope you enjoy me rambling about these different movies. All right, so the first movie we're going to start off is a movie called Riff Raff. Now, the plot summary is about a retired criminal named Vincent whose peaceful new life with his second family is interrupted when his estranged first family arrives at their cabin, closely followed by a vengeful mobster due to the death of his son caused by Vincent's own son. Now, this movie is pretty all right. I kind of got bored halfway through. I kind of paused the movie in the middle, and I kind of waited until the very last moment to continue watching it. But it's not a bad movie by any means. There just isn't really much to say about it. It's a better story, compared to this other media that I will be covering right after this. But it doesn't have the same intrigue and the moments of what the hell is happening to keep me engaged. This movie might be for others, and I have seen people on different platforms like Tumblr who actually really like this movie, but personally, it's definitely not for me. Nothing really saves it. It's low-key just mid, if I'm being honest. One of the characters, Rocco, he's really great, and his relationship with his younger brother, or I guess half-brother, DJ, is definitely a highlight because I love me some complicated sibling relationships. But it's really just meh. It's boring, and even though I have praised these two characters, they're kind of nothing burgers. Like, sorry guys, but there is a twist at the end. I won't spoil what it is in case you want to watch it, but the twist in the end is really the best part about it, in my opinion. And even then, I kind of wish they ended on the twist because someone kind of like dies. I'm not going to say who, I'm not going to spoil it, but I kind of wish that person stayed dead. But anyways, I'm going to give it a 1.5 out of 5. I'm sorry, but it's genuinely not for me, so I can't really recommend it to anyone. Rocco, once again, is a highlight and is a really interesting role, but he isn't enough to make the movie enjoyable. The only reason why I feel like it's a 1.5 is because I ultimately felt bad about having to make it have a bigger gap between this one and the next show I'm going to cover. And because the twist at the end, like I said, was genuinely good, I didn't expect it. Since to me, this one and the other show that I will be reviewing next are kind of in the same ballpark, I do kind of like it as much as the next show, but I do believe that it just doesn't have a it doesn't have a good vibe compared to the other one. And I can't suggest it in all honesty, unless you for some reason like the plot summary I said. But yeah. I also remember, I don't know if whoever is listening to this knows about Pete Davidson, but he's in it, if that's anything, and he is pretty funny. So, yeah, if that for some reason suits you, then give it a watch, but personally, I can't recommend it. All right. The second piece of media that I will be reviewing is a TV show called Outer Range, and this is the show that I haven't watched the second season on because people said it was bad, but I genuinely did not know what was going on in this show, so I will try to summarize it to the best of my ability. So there is this ranch owner named Royal Abbott who has a black hole somewhere on his land. Yes, just stick with me. I promise it'll kind of make sense. And he has to deal both with this issue and his rival neighbors called the Tillersons that are starting to suspect that something's up and wants Royal's land. All while this is happening, a mysterious person named Autumn joins the fray and kind of makes things worse for Royal. There's also a murder mystery plot. Yeah, it sounds a bit much, but, I can't in good conscience recommend it because it was already kind of a big mess for me having to explain what the hell was going on. So, yeah, I can't really talk about it without sounding like I'm on crack. That plot summary that I gave, it's very, that is the simple, version. There is a more complicated version if you want me to get into the entire season. I have a post on my blog talking about it, if you would allow me to self-plug for a second. But that's really kind of all that the show has to offer in terms of the simplistic form, and it's kind of surface level. I do like some of the characters. For example, Rhett is a pretty cool character, but aside from that, there's nothing really that draws me to the show. It gets intriguing in some parts, but then you remember what show you're watching, and it gets confusing all over again. I just can't bring myself to like it. However, when the plot points get good, they get really good. Not in a way that makes sense, but in a way that makes you go what the heck is happening? But I would rate it a 2 out of 5. When it gets good, it gets real good. The only problem is that the only times where it's actually good is when they focus on the Abbott family. So basically, like Royal's family. Because it's honestly really good. Like, the family drama is really good. Not even about, like, the weird black hole in their land. Like, I didn't really find that interesting. And they don't really talk about it that much. But the family drama is really good. And I found it super interesting. But you have to get, like, 3 other plot points to get to the family drama, so it's kind of a bit of a drag. But if you like cowboys and supernatural stuff, you should totally check it out. All right, the next movie that I'm going to be talking about is The Line. Now, for its plot summary, this film tackles the corruption and the darker side of certain frats. It starts where the main character, Tom, is ready to gain status within his frat, Kappa Nu Alpha, or KNA, but ultimately realizes that his frat's traditions of hazing causes tensions between the freshman recruits and his roommate. Now, it's kind of similar to Outer Range and Riff Raff, where there's only really one character that I like in it, but it has an advantage, at least to me, over the other two because, one, it's a movie for Outer Range, and B, I actually like the plot, and C, it didn't really confuse me. Would I recommend it? Not really, unless you're a fan of the actor that is in all of these media. But, you know, he doesn't really appear that much. It has a slightly better plot than Outer Range and Riff Raff, and it's also more intriguing than the other two, but that isn't really saying much. I rate it a 2.5 out of 5. It is genuinely in the middle. I can't really form an opinion on this movie other than one of the characters, Todd Stevens, is an extremely interesting character, and I wish he had more screen time. So if you're a fan of this actor, you would like his character. Anything else, it's likely a skip. It is the epitome of mid. Not bad, but it's also not good either. All right, the next movie I'm going to review is The Caine Mutiny Court Martial. This is the movie of all times, I think. Its plot summary is that this is a courtroom drama that follows a court-martial of a lieutenant who claims that his captain is mentally unwell, which is why this lieutenant takes command of the Caine from his captain during a storm. Now, it's kind of this thing where it's low-key boring, but also kind of interesting. Like, I don't know, the whole thing left me in suspense the entire time, despite it feeling like something I would be bored by. It drags on at times, but overall, it's pretty alright. I don't really know why I like this one more than The Line. I guess I grew accustomed to lawyer dramas due to my dad, who would often watch Suits. So I guess I got a bit satisfied, despite being spoiled that one of the characters wasn't who they say they were. I actually didn't expect the plot twist at the end, if that's anything. Would I recommend it? Not really, since I feel like it wouldn't cater to a mainstream audience, and the villain, like the plot twist villain, kind of has less screen time than other of my favorite characters, like in the different medias that I have talked about. But I was personally cool with it, and in terms of recommending, I would rather recommend The Line, but I enjoyed this film more than that film, if that makes any sense. Hopefully it did. Once again, it is getting a 2.5 out of 5. This one is also genuinely in the middle. I don't really have any strong opinions on this movie. It's kind of just there. It exceeded my expectations because it wasn't as boring as I was told, but that's kind of like a low bar. I don't know. I'm used to this type of court genre, so it isn't too bad, but it's still mid. And just like The Line, it is genuinely the definition of mid. It is in the middle. Now, the next miniseries that I have watched was Catch-22. Now, this was actually the latest one that I have watched, and I am probably going to watch the last episode after this podcast episode. But, yeah, the plot summary is The main character is in the Air Force during World War II, who tries to be grounded by proving he's insane to avoid flying more dangerous missions. However, because of this, he is caught in a catch-22 situation where requests to be grounded proves he isn't insane. Now, this was a heavy watch. I didn't expect it to like it as much as I did, as I'm not a fan of war series, with the exception of Captain America, the First Avenger. However, I appreciated the fact that they actually took time to highlight how war affects its soldiers instead of making it a pro-war franchise. And obviously, it's based on the Catch-22 book, so also props for the writer of that. And like in comparisons to other mainstream media such as Top Gun, who kind of leans more into pro-war, I'm really glad this series doesn't do that. While I couldn't find myself to be attached to any character in particular, often forgetting their names, I like what they were going for. Similar to the next film on this roster, not a lot of people like this adaptation. Despite that, I still think overall, this show delivers a depiction of war that isn't seen much in modern media. This is getting a 2.8 out of 5. I do really like it a lot. It showcases how the military has these insane rules that keep them from going home and keep fighting in the war, and it's very nice that there is discussion about that. However, due to the lack of interest in the characters and my disinterest in war shows as a whole, I do think this one doesn't hit as hard for me as it does with other TV shows and films on this list, even if the story is very interesting. It isn't mid, but it is higher than mid. There is a chance that I might like the book more if I ever get around to it, and maybe I'll appreciate the series more once I watch the last episode. So we will be seeing that in the future. Alright, the next film on this list is Salem's Lot. I think a lot of people don't really like this movie that much, but I personally did. Now, the plot summary is that it's about a writer who returns to his childhood town of Jerusalem's Lot, or Salem's Lot, like the title, and discovers it's being taken over by a vampire. This writer forms an alliance with a group of locals to fight this evil. Now, this isn't really the best Stephen King adaptation. Then again, I don't really like a bunch of Stephen King adaptations, but it's still a pretty good time nonetheless. Yeah, it's not the best movie in the world, but I wouldn't really consider it to be a bad movie. I wouldn't rewatch it, sure, but vampires are pretty cool, and overall it's kind of campy, but still a fun movie. Personally, this gets a 3 out of 5. I liked it, but I definitely say that it's not for everyone. Again, especially if you have watched like the old original version of this film as well as the book. I kind of don't want to recommend it for that reason alone. Like, it's definitely a good time, but it really depends on a certain person's taste. If it sounds like it's your thing, I would recommend it. If not, then you won't like it at all. I also never read the book, by the way, or watched the original movie, so if that's anything, then I'm sorry. I like this movie, and I don't really plan on watching the original or reading the book, so yeah. Alright, the next movie on the list is Skincare. The plot summary is it's about a woman who wants to start her own skincare line, but her business and reputation is going down due to her supposed rival, causing her to go into a downward spiral. Now, I didn't expect myself to get hooked on this. I knew very well the twist with one of the characters was coming, but even I was baffled about the reveal. Also, there is a certain scene in this movie that I think was peak cinema. I don't want to spoil it, but it involves the song Teenage Dream by Katy Perry, and that's all I'll say about that. I also watched an edit of it on TikTok, and that is now all I'll say about that. I also really like the protagonist, Hope. She gave off, like, I don't know, kind of like if Heather Chandler was deranged. No offense to her. Like, I think the actress did an amazing job, and I love complicated female characters. I like this movie a lot, even if I didn't think I would. This is also another 3 out of 5. This movie surprised me. I would recommend it to fans of this actor because he kind of plays the bad guy. And I would also recommend it for that specific scene with Katy Perry's Teenage Dream because if you know, you'll know. However, I feel like I'd recommend it in general. In fact, I recommended it to one of my friends who still hasn't watched it, but I'm not keeping count. Like, sure, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but if you're open to trying new things, I definitely suggest this movie. I genuinely don't think it'll leave you disappointed. Now for the next film on my roster, I have Starling Girl. It is about a 17-year-old girl who explores her faith and navigates through her community and has a forbidden romance with her married youth pastor. Yeah, this one, despite this movie being really good, it's really heavy. I mean, I don't think I've seen anyone say anything bad about this movie because it is a really good depiction of grooming and religious trauma, and I do like it when religious trauma is being depicted in media. I felt so bad for the protagonist. She didn't deserve anything that happened to her and anything that she had to deal with. Not only does her family suck, but the pastor needs to be put down like a dog. That guy sucks. All my homies hate him. But I will admit that the reason why it's so low, because this is kind of like a list of how much I like them, as you can see by like the growing score. There are better films than this one, despite this being really good, because I am extremely sensitive with the subject matter that was being talked about, which means this was a really hard watch. I had to fast forward due to anxiety, or I just felt extremely uncomfortable. Again, that's how it's supposed to be, because topics like this are supposed to be uncomfortable. Therefore, it's still gonna get a high rating. But I don't know, I'll probably never watch it again, but I do adore the story so much. It's gonna be rated a 4 out of 5. I like this movie a lot. It was a really good representation on all the messed up stuff that happens in religious groups. I would recommend it as long as you're aware of the touchy subject matter, such as grooming and religious trauma. I'm also, once again, a lover of religious trauma and how it affects those who have been kind of like in certain religious groups. So I'm glad that it's being exposed more in media. And also, once again, we all hate the youth pastor in this movie. He sucks. And I hope this movie gets a sequel where the youth pastor gets his karma. That is all. The next show I've watched, I also have not watched the last episode of this show. Lessons in Chemistry. A brief plot summary. A brilliant researcher chemist in the 1950s to 60s is sidelined due to sexism in the scientific community. This is further worsened when a traumatic incident occurs as she tries to get back on her feet. She ends up hosting a cooking show to teach women about chemistry through, well, cooking. This show ruined me. I was on the fence about it because I'm not typically into like shows where they deal with science, which is why I wasn't really a big fan of The Big Bang Theory. But oh my gosh, this show was so good. I'm so glad I caved and watched it. I genuinely didn't expect a twist to happen in the second episode, right at the beginning and the end. It's genuinely so gripping. I love it. The plot is good, and I love how one of the characters seems to haunt the narrative. Also, the actress of Captain Marvel is in this one, and I think she does a pretty good job. I know she got a lot of flack because of the movie, but I assure you, once she is given a good script, she is really good. I loved her in this. This one gets a 4 out of 5. Normally I would recommend, but the second episode is so out of pocket, I cannot for the life of me recommend something so heartbreaking. Psych, you should suffer with me, actually. But I also love the topics handled in the show. It deals, like I mentioned before, with sexism, but it also deals with racism. And I love how these topics are being handled, and they do it with such grace and care. I love it. All right, the next one on the list is Strangers Pray by Night. Uh, okay, so the plot summary is how a family is on a road trip that makes them soon find themselves in a desperate fight for their survival when they arrive at a trailer park that is mysteriously deserted until all hell breaks loose when mass killers come from them. Okay, hear me out. This movie is actually pretty baller. I reviewed it during Horror Week, and I'm so happy because it was really good. It's a pretty cliche slasher film, but it rose to be one of my favorites, even if I'm not a fan of horror. There's a certain scene, I like to call it the pool scene, and it's genuinely one of the best, like, scenes from a horror movie ever. The cinematography and sound is really good, and the whole concept that happens in the scene is really smart. It's low-key underrated, and I'm glad I gave it a chance. The brother and sister duo, Luke and Kinsey, are the highlights, and I love their characters so much. Like I mentioned in Riff Raff, I am a sucker for sibling relationships, and I just love their characters, and it's also great at being a scary slasher movie, to me anyway, because I'm a wuss. Compared to Salem's Lot, Salem's Lot wasn't that scary, but this one actually is genuinely scary. So yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good film. I rate it a 4 out of 5 because I really like it. Once again, the pool scene, extremely good. All the characters are very likable. The killers served their purpose and were low-key creepy as hell. I was entertained all the way, so I would definitely recommend it. In terms of which I enjoyed more, it's this film, but if you want like a better piece of media, I would recommend Lessons in Chemistry. All right, the next one, I promise there is 4 more plus this. So I will be done yapping in a bit. Press Play is about a young woman named Laura who discovers her and her late boyfriend's shared mixtape can transport her back in time to the moments associated with each song. Press Play is genuinely underrated as a rom-com. It's genuinely really good, and the romance was actually believable. A surprising amount of rom-coms these days don't do it for me, so I'm glad this one does. The boyfriend is such a tragic character, and I'm glad that he gets the ending he got, but most of the movie was still pretty sad. I feel like the main couple, they're my Roman Empire, and I really like both this one and Lessons of Chemistry, but this one is slightly higher because I like the plot more and it doesn't deal with any scientific stuff. It may be cheesy, but again, it's really good cheese. I rate this one a 4 out of 5 and a definite recommend. Even if you don't like rom-coms, the plot itself is so interesting that you can't help but fall in love with the cheesiness. A hidden gem, I'd say, and did not expect myself to like that movie as much as I did. Now, another one is Bad Times at the El Royale. A plot summary is that 7 strangers meet at this rundown hotel between California and Nevada called the El Royale. Secrets will soon be brought to light as we see each perspective of these characters. This movie is also one I didn't expect to be my new favorite, but I'm glad it is. The plot is really interesting, the characters feel real, and the plot twist villain had me at the edge of my seat. This movie is so fun to watch, and each plot point doesn't feel boring or useless, except maybe the first one, but he's still a pretty cool character, so I will be giving him a pass. I just love everything about this movie. Each one of them got a chance to shine, and I'm surprised I knew that many actors in this movie. It keeps you on your toes, and I didn't anticipate it to be as good as it is. And I didn't also anticipate the twist, which is a bonus point, and I would honestly rewatch it again. I would rate it a 4.5 out of 5. It's one of my new favorite films and a hard recommend from me. the mystery and the thrill is there. And I also love one of the characters. He's kind of like the hotel receptionist, and he's so tragic. I love him. I like the brief talks of religion in this movie that came from this character. It also gets a 0.5 because of, well, the deaths that will happen. And it makes me sad. Meanwhile, with the rest of the characters, like I mentioned, they are interesting, and I enjoy watching their antics and side stories. And I also love the gimmick of El Royale as a whole. It's neat and catches my attention. I really love it. All right, now down to the final two movies that I will be reviewing. One of them is Top Gun Maverick. Now, the actor I'm gonna now spoil, finally. I'm sure you all been waiting for it. But his name is Lewis Pullman, and he plays Bob in this movie. Call sign Bob. Now, the plot of this is basically after Maverick retires as being a teacher from the first Top Gun and kind of does his own thing, he's called back into Top Gun to teach 12 pilots how to fly this insane suicide mission. And he wants to teach it to make sure that all of them survive. I really like this movie. My dad is actually a very, very big Top Gun fan. And honestly, I didn't want to like it because of Tom Cruise. I don't really like him. And the first Top Gun was not my style. I also thought that one was boring. But Top Gun Maverick really kept me at the edge of my seat. It actually made me kind of feel the sort of adrenaline because of how they were flying and all of the quote-unquote action that was happening. Overall, I really like that movie. I would give it a 5 out of 5. It's genuinely really good. It's really funny. And I think a lot of people agree since it was one of the highest ranking movies for that year when it came out. And I also like a lot of the characters. I like Maverick's plot with his godson. And overall, I just thought it was really neat. So if you want to give one Tom Cruise movie a chance, it should be this one. This one was really good. All right, the next movie and the last one that I will be reviewing is Thunderbolts. What is probably my favorite MCU movie, of all time, maybe. It's up there with The Winter Soldier. But I really like this movie. To be vulnerable for a sec, I actually struggle with a lot of mental health issues. So the fact that this movie is able to bring to light a lot of these mental health issues, I'm honestly really glad. I love how it shows a form of found family, and I love how the Sentry was being portrayed. The Sentry, of course, being portrayed by Lewis Pullman, who is also, again, the actor that I have been mentioning throughout this entire podcast episode. I believe he does the Sentry persona and the Void persona really good. He also acts really good as Bob. This movie tugs on your heartstrings a lot, not only with this character, but with the other characters too. For example, the kind of main protagonist, Yelena, she's a really good character, and we explore how she's dealing with the loss of her sister and with how she can't find her purpose in life. I just really enjoy it. It showcases how superheroes aren't perfect, and you can't really make someone perfect, you know? It also shows how, this is kind of a new era for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it also shows how people can change. Because the whole point of Thunderbolts is that they were villains, but now they have the chance to grow and change. Honestly, they're pretty cool. I love them a lot. They're amazing. But yeah, I rewatch it a lot. It was the first movie that I have watched, when I was in UIC. I watched it the first Wednesday of this semester when I was getting extremely homesick, and it does help. It did help a lot. It made me kind of happy. No, not even kind of. It made me really happy. So, in short, all these movies and TV shows, they have a part in inspiring others. You could watch the worst TV show or movie ever, and that'll still give you inspiration. Like, for example, Hazbin Hotel is, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but Hazbin Hotel is a pretty badly written show. No offense to the fans who are listening to this, but it's a bad show. However, how it tackles like its religious themes, it inspires me to kind of like make my own religious like story. It's kind of like that. No matter what media you consume, you always get hit with the inspiration that comes to you. And overall, I'm just really glad that all of these like different forms of media get made, because they make me want to become someone who wants to create a story that could be someone's favorite form of media, or it could be someone, or that could be someone's favorite thing, or something that someone rewatches or rereads over and over again. So yeah, that was kind of a bit of an insight into what inspires me to write some of my short stories. And I'm very glad you tuned in for me today. This will probably be the first and maybe only podcast episode that I'll ever do. But in case I'm back, feel free to tune in. And don't forget to tune in to Garden of Words, which comes every Wednesday at 4 p.m. So yeah, bye!